Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you to the February 23rd Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce member luncheon. As a friendly reminder, I ask you to mute yourself if you are not speaking. A couple notes from our newsletter I wanted to go over really quick. That it's a great benefit as a member that you have the ability to share your business news and event information on the Chamber Facebook pages. And you can see the newsletter for details on how to post that. And another mention in the newsletter is that it's time to start thinking about running for the board, the Robbinsdale Chamber of Commerce board. We are taking nominations for the election process, which will take place in April and May. And unfortunately, we have officially canceled the Chamber's highly anticipated extravaganza for 2021. And today, we will be hearing more about the Metro Blue Line extension project with Sophia, is it Ginis, and Nick Landwer. They'll be highlighting reasons for the project pivot and what to expect in 2021, and the decision-making process and the inputs throughout the year. Our guests will be able to answer some questions and hope to hear from the Chamber businesses about their hopes and concerns regarding the project. With that, Marcia, I'm hoping that you can speak a little bit as to why the Chamber is involved with, how we got involved with the Blue Line. That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, the Blue Line light rail extension originally planned to go through the city of Robbinsdale on the light rail, or right next to the railroad tracks going through the community. Certainly that would impact our local businesses, both as an opportunity and concern for construction. And so we've been working on this project for more than 20 years. And lately, the BNSF Railroad has indicated that they are not interested in cooperating and having the light rail on the railroad tracks anymore. And so a new effort is underway to see if there's a different way to make it from Target Field in downtown Minneapolis up to Brooklyn Park and the Target campus. So we do have business representatives from both the city and the chamber that meet as a business advisory commission. The chamber representative is, my screen is moving around next to me here, so it's distracting. McDonald's, Tim Baylor, there I go. Tim Baylor is the representative for the chamber, but we also have Mike Steinhauser from Robbins Center and a representative from North Memorial Hospital, their new CEO representing the city as business entities. So we have 3 different business entities all along County Road 81, which is the potential new location for the light rail. So that's why we are interested as a chamber and as a city as we watch the exploration of this move forward. And I think that's about all I need to say, and turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Marcia. And then for those just joining, I'm going to ask, just a friendly reminder again to mute yourself if you are not speaking. And I guess I'd like to ask Dave if he would like to say anything, if he has any comments to make today.
No, I think we are ready for the speakers, and then we can do introductions of the people on the call. The speakers are both here, so I think you can send it right to them.
Perfect. And we are introducing Sophia Ginis and Nick Landwear from the Blue Line Light Rail Extension Route. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us. Like the introduction, I'm Sophia Ginis. I'm the Manager of Public Involvement at Metro Transit for our transit system development. So basically any of our big projects that we have underway. And I'm joined by my colleague, Nick Landwer, who is our lead engineer on this project and brings with us substantial experience and making design and engineering work. And so I'm going to share my screen right now, just so we have some visuals to walk through with us today. We'll keep the presentation short and then allow time for comments and feedback from the business community that we have with us on the call. And as Marsha also said, I really want to thank the folks that have stepped up to be on our business advisory committee from the chamber and surrounding businesses. We really rely on the feedback directly as part of our decision-making process. And so we're looking forward to kicking off that committee in March. Okay, let me share. Is everyone able to see the presentation?
Yes, and if I can just ask again, if you are not muted, to please mute yourself. We're getting a little bit of feedback. Sorry for interruption.
No worries. Can everybody still see the presentation? Yes, okay. So as the introduction said, we just want to walk quickly through the project transition and give everybody an idea of what to expect in the next year. So kind of the elephant in the room, I think many of you are familiar with our previous project alignment that utilized freight rail property. It's kind of in the corner here. And it was no light decision to switch our direction from using the BNSF corridor. There was multi-year effort and many strategies brought to the table to try to get an agreement with the railroad. And we finally kind of reached the point where if we wanted to see a transit investment in this region of our metro area, it was time to move forward and see if we could find another solution to deliver this promise that we've made to the region, and especially the 5 corridor cities that follow our alignment. So here we are now, and kind of over the next year, our goal is to find a community-supported alignment that delivers the transit investment that we've been talking about. We are trying to preserve as much of that blue part of the project as we've seen before, and some of our areas, as Nick will walk through later, are easier to do than others. Basically, the bulk of our work this year is to suggest where we think the route should go, and then work with you all in greater and greater detail to move forward. So what to expect kind of right away. We are getting ready to release kind of our slew of suggestions in terms of how the LRT should travel through the various communities. In Robbinsdale, there's maybe more clear direction that Nick can talk about. There's still a lot of work to be done, even when we show these routes, though. So throughout the year, there'll be other times where we will provide greater analysis, both in terms of some of our engineering details, the project benefits and whatnot, and have time for both official comment period, and as well as we want to engage directly with the folks that are on this call, especially those that are closest to our project, to make things work in our design for you as much as possible. So I'll turn it over to Nick to talk about what to expect a little bit more.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. And, I met with the project office and the director of engineering and design when we opened the project office in 2015, so very aware of how we got to where we were, and was responsible for basically taking the old alignment to 90%. So now with this pivot, I want to discuss kind of how we're tackling this and moving forward with it. So the map shown here, we've looked at the corridor. Again, we want to make sure that we continue the same project. So going from Target Field Station in downtown Minneapolis, and then the other terminus that we had was up at Oak Grove Station by north of 610. And how we keep that alignment or keep as close to our existing alignment commitments as we could. So we broke it down, the corridor down into 3 different segments to kind of take a look at what kind of work or what effort it's going to be to identify the mitigation for the lack of being able to negotiate with BNSF on using their corridors. So As you see, area number 1 on this map, up north of 610 and down to just roughly north of 94, we believe in that location. It's not affected by the railroad right away, and our plans have us going up West Broadway, center running, and we believe, working with the city there also, that we can continue with that operation. So continue work going up West Broadway, and we really don't have to do a lot of work at this time along that corridor. The salmon colored, I guess you would call it, area, that's area number 2, and that would continue down from area 1 to Minneapolis area, is really what affects Robbinsdale and the city of Crystal. And that area we've identified, working initially with the city and taking a look at how do we stay as close as we can possibly be to our previous alignment along the BNSF corridor. It was identified that really, with looking at through routes and capacity and right of way and the previous work and destinations, that County Road 81 is really the point of focus that we're going to analyze, working with the city of Robbinsdale through here to take a look at issues that would come up with this alignment and identify those issues and how we work through it. And then area number 3, that gets us down into Minneapolis, where there's a lot of different options, a lot of different possibilities to get from Target Field Station. And I should note that previously in our alignment, when we were going down BNSF corridor, we'd have a lot of public meetings, and everybody would ask me, why aren't you including the hospital in your alignment? How can you get to the hospital? Isn't there alignment you can get to the hospital? So I think with this pivot, we can focus on bringing North Memorial into the process. So that's where the County Road 81 alignment benefits us, and it helps us focus on, as we go through Minneapolis, how to get from Target Field Station to, how are we going to get to North Memorial? So that's where we're looking at a lot of different options. How are we going to get out of downtown, and then what's available in right away in Minneapolis? So again, these are based on our project principles, which are making sure that we limit disruption to the neighborhoods, that we are committed to our previous work, that we're sensitive to existing and proposed transit ways in the area, and that we're taking a look at what our operational needs are and right-of-way availabilities and key destinations as always. So can you move on? Thank you. So as we're rolling out here in March, we're going to roll out to the public some of these alignment options, basically a map that kind of shows what options are, and we're going to be looking for feedback from the communities and from the businesses to see if we're missing things and what we're showing, to get the feedback on what's the good thing there. So what we want to talk about, though, is with our route options as we roll them out, what won't be included. I mean, these are really kind of lines on a map at this time. There's not going to be a lot of engineering, except for up in Brooklyn Park, where we've got 90% design. The rest of it, we're really kind of starting back with a line on the map, identifying what that alignment is. So we're not going to have show the existing conditions right away, and show that footprint right away. We're not going to have right-of-way impacts or full analysis of how the project will roll out and ridership and all that stuff. We're not going to show station locations, although in the County Road 81 area, our desire is to stay as close to those commitments that we had as possible. So in our previous alignment, we had a station up at 63rd, a station at Bass Lake Road, and then in Robbinsdale, the station that was along the railroad corridor by 42nd. And we want to make sure that we're keeping those stations and locations as close as possible to what we had previously discussed. We will also not have a complete inventory of the project risks. I mean, as we start getting more and more into the design, that's when we start evaluating what risks are to the project, whether they're market risks or construction risks or other risks associated. And then similar with costs. Right now our last project budget was rolled out in 2015 or 2016, excuse me, with the municipal consent. And we know that that's been quite a few years since then. So with inflation and just moving the project around, that we do anticipate the cost will change. I'm really not sure until we have an alignment what those impacts would be, or if they're large changes, small changes. But we do know the change. Next slide, please. And so what to expect? What we're really looking for as we do this rollout and as we're coming out to the community is we're going to start seeking feedback on these alignments. We want to validate if what we're showing on a map is right, if we've missed anything. Are we identifying the needs of the residents and businesses in the communities that we would potentially serve? We want to base this on, we have pulled up project goals based on the previous project and the previous planning, and we want to build off of those. So, we want to make sure that we're refreshing those to current conditions. Some of that work happened back in the early 2010 to early 2012. Things have changed, so we want to make sure that we're keeping up with that. We're going to want to make sure that we have evaluation criteria for these alignments that we can analyze and make sure that we're picking up the benefits and identifying the impacts of the different options, so we can weigh them out and clearly determine what the best route is. And then we are looking for information from the community, from the businesses to help us select those alignments. So that's kind of the key here. I'll turn it back over to you, Sophia, and then we'll be open for questions.
Thank you, Nick. I suspect that what we're highlighting today shows that there's probably will be more questions than we have immediate answers in terms of the project rollout. But we're here today to really express our commitment to work directly with all of you and closely and really focus on how we make this work best for Robbinsdale and the vibrant business community that is part of Robbinsdale. I know I go to many of your businesses on a very regular basis, living fairly close to all of you in Golden Valley. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Nick and I are available to basically take any of your questions, or even if you have statements, I'm ready to just even write those down. So turn it back to our board chairs.
Great. Thank you, Sophia. Yes, my name is Susan Nelson, and I'm with Citizens Independent Bank, which is on the corner of 36 and West Broadway. So we're over by New Birdtown Flats as a business. But yeah, I think the one thing that I did want to hear a little bit more about was maybe, what is your 2021 goal? Where do you guys want to try and be, within 2021? I mean, I know you're not going to have the whole thing ready to go. So where do you want to be at the end of 2021?
Yeah, the main thing is just having an alignment selected for the whole corridor. And when we get to that, the three areas that Nick identified will be in various stages, in a sense, with potentially some of our work in Brooklyn Park, basically still at 90%. But for the remainder of the project, we know we have a lot of work to do. We'll be at some small percent of engineering. We'll have to get that advanced over the following years to be construction ready, as well as complete some of our environmental review. So kind of our goal just for this year is the routes that we're proposing, do they work, and kind of preliminarily, how does that all fit into the community and those details? Obviously, we have to work on placing stations as well. Nick, anything to add?
Yeah, and I can just reiterate that we have been working with city staff to, again, on 81 to identify what issues could be in there, what constraints are out there, what opportunities are along the alignment. We are starting those discussions. It's really rolling up the sleeves, taking a look at what's available and what we can do through that area. So through this year, we want to get issues identified, determine, how we can move forward with that County Road 81 alignment. And in addition, we'll work with the community. I think soon we'll be trying to, I know that there's been a meet and greet with North Memorial, but we'll reach out to them also to see how the project can coordinate with how they operate and function.
You guys have a lot of work to do.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah, and then I can open it up to the floor for any other questions. Don't forget to unmute yourself.
Susan, this is George. Who do you want to go?
Oh, if anybody has any questions, just unmute yourself. We'll hopefully
Okay.
not talk over each other.
Well, that's what I was trying to avoid. Okay.
Hi, George.
Hi, how are you? Just a clarification, Nick, for the presentation, or Sophia, I can't remember which one of you said that, but North Memorial declined involvement in the original plan that kind of ended us up on the railroad, just as a clarification. And they've had a lot of changes in leadership, so it's not surprising they may have a change of heart in that original decision. Secondly, I'm curious, the first I heard that Bottineau was the only consideration through Robbinsdale was at the Corridor Management Committee meeting where Mayor Blonigan is our representative and I'm the alternate. And I'm a little disappointed that we're not looking at anything but Bottineau. And everyone I've talked to, and it's not a lot of people yet because this is still fairly new news, but everyone I've talked to is very opposed to using Bottineau as the corridor through Robbinsdale. It just, Bottineau itself cuts Robbinsdale in half bad enough. And when you add light rail and its impacts to it, it creates a even worse situation. So I'm curious, is what the plan is for alignment options if the citizens of Robbinsdale and its businesses say we don't want it there.
Thank you, George, for the question. I think it does become difficult, if 81 is not the desired choice going through Robbinsdale. There's not really as we look at the map and options. There's not a lot of alternative options really, other than 81 that continue to serve Robbinsdale. So that's why we're focusing on that. But we are, as we're reaching out to the public and going to stuff like this. I mean, if we are missing something, we're open to discussion on that. But I think outside of 81, the available right of way is not really there. Now, as from the project side, I can say that we really do want to work with the city as we move forward and as we evaluate 81, that how can we make things more approachable and not divide things, so for transit, getting pedestrians and bikes and riders to the train is important. So how can we make things a little bit more friendly to the community and to pedestrians and still maintain the existing services and roadway out there? So that's what we would focus on. So hopefully, does that answer your question, George?
Yeah, it does. It's part of the resistance I've heard is not just the fact that it's going to use Bottineau, but it's no longer potentially or probably going to use Highway 55, which changes the dynamics for a lot of people too. So,
yes,
we're Highway 55. People were looking forward to in the communities around in Harrison and NERC and Heritage Park to some improvements in infrastructure, and we will have to track those pieces as well as we move forward.
This is Dave. Just a quick question for Nick and Sophia. When you mentioned, Nick, specifically right-of-way situation along 81, tell me a little bit more about that. What land are you talking about, and what would change potentially? What is the vision for 81 if it were to go there? Because I have great concerns about congestion and traffic along that road as it stands currently, and wondering how that might be affected if light rail was to go down that area.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the question. And that is kind of one of the first things that we are working on right now. We're doing a capacity analysis of 81. We're taking a higher level look at what the traffic needs are along there, how it operates today, and if we brought in light rail. And our intention would be with light rail whenever possible. We want to be running at grade and center running along the roadway. That's what functions the best with traffic and gets folks more easily to it and creates less of a barrier. But we'll look at other options too. If we need to be creative when we hit right of way constraints. So we believe there's enough right of way there, but we will be looking at how we can move forward and work with the existing and future traffic projections through there and get things to work. But some of it is maybe we also need to look at being creative. For instance, I worked on Central Corridor and we came across Washington Avenue Bridge through the university. We had to work on alternate routes to get around the campus there and look at how the traffic works and the destinations were. So, that's maybe part of the conversation also.
And to add to what Nick is saying as well, one of our project principles is basically to minimize right-of-way impacts to the amount as possible. So we'll be taking a proactive approach to basically have as light of a footprint as possible. Obviously with LRT, there's operational and right-of-way needs, but we will be working as creatively as possible to have light touch isn't the right word, but minimize impacts to the extent that we possibly can. And we'll have more visuals and more ability to walk through that with folks. I think we're at this place where we're kind of still talking lines, so it's hard to kind of fully wrap heads around. And hopefully, as we get further in our work, we'll be able to dive deeper into those conversations and really be able to get that feedback to potential proposals.
I did think of one other question. On the previous preferred alignment, that included in Robbinsdale a 450 car parking ramp feature that the city agreed to have be in Robbinsdale. Is there any thoughts or plans on the future of that?
Yeah, George, I think I think by moving the alignment as we're looking at to 81, I can't really imagine that the park and ride or the ridership demand at the stations would change drastically. So I'm guessing that ridership and that demand is probably still there. So that'll help us or guide us as we're looking at station locations and how we serve those stations. So I think we're going to need to consider that, and I see that as being something that would likely be.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions? Well, I have heard from other people that have the light rails going through their towns that are on the rail tracks, and they said that it's a definite positive thing to not have the train going through on the railway, on the railroad tracks, because there's always these major delays and they're sitting around and getting anxious. So I think that that's probably a good thing to try and reroute it off of those tracks. Yep. Yeah. And last call for any other comments or questions. I think it's a great opportunity to.
Susan, I think you're the thing you were hearing. Susan, this is George. The person that commented about delays from the freight rail and stuff was probably referring to the North Star line and not light rail, because there were no shared tracks in light rail, and delays would have been very minimal, if ever.
Yeah, she's coming from, yeah, you're right. She is on the bigger track. say?
I just the city and the police.
Oh,
There been
you're breaking up.
maybe I'll.
Susan, this is Dave. I think I heard a little bit of what Charlotte was mentioning related to, I think, the fire police station being located where it is and awfully close, obviously, to 81 and Botno. And maybe the concern would be for both of those facilities, response time and getting through. And I think maybe the same case for North Memorial and all the ambulances that would be up in that area.
And then that's something definitely as we go through design, we do work close. We work closely with the first responders and city staff also to make sure that we're accommodating that we do not cause delays, that we're making sure that they can get through in these areas. And you know, I think Central Corridor, which I'm familiar with, you know, we had 2 fire stations right along the alignment that we were able to work with, and their operations work seamless with them as they need to come out. There's signals that they preempt and we can shut down operations for fire trucks and ambulances to get through. So.
Yeah, we have some good experience with that, and it's a common theme and question that we attempt to tackle.
And Nick, I'm interested a little bit further up. You mentioned from 94 pretty much up to the Target campus that it might be the same as it was before. I know that it was supposed to cross over the top of 81 at about 73rd. I'm wondering, what will it look like coming off of West Broadway and getting back onto Botno? How might you be thinking about that happening? I know that's a rather congested area.
Yeah, I think it's a good question, and that's one we've kind of gone around. And so one of the thoughts is would we continue with the structure up and home? I mean, we're basically in the same place, going to make that transition, other than we're 120 feet over from where we were. So we'll take a look at and determine whether a structure will need it to be going up and over. One direction of traffic, I guess, would be north. You know, if that grade would be a better option. So we'll need to analyze that. I guess, you know, we haven't gotten that far into the design, but, you know, the structure would still be an option that we would consider.
I'd just like to make a comment, if I may.
Go ahead, Holly.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure if you could hear me. Just in terms of where it's going and what it can do for the community. I'm a newer resident of Robbinsdale, but I have used public transportation as my sole transportation for the last 16 years, and that has been in 3 major cities. And I believe strongly that it can only help the businesses in Robbinsdale to have it near and to have it accessible. It can help the residents as well as bringing more business. So I think that it going through Robbinsdale and being close to the businesses is very important. And that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you for that, Holly. You know, at Metro Transit, we take very strongly the idea of supporting a transit-oriented lifestyle, and those that really embrace it and the benefits that it can bring to a community. So thank you for that comment. Well, I will leave my contact information in the chat so that everybody on the call for sure has it. Should you have any questions or comments at any point as we work through this project, you know, I am always available to come and talk to you individually. Nick and I would be more than happy to come back to this group in the future to give updates on design and engineering work and answer questions. And we really look forward to working with you to make a transit solution that works.
That's great, Sophia. Yeah, and if you can give us, if there's something exciting happening, if you can give us a heads up, then we can certainly get you into a member meeting absolutely right away.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Susan,
Thank you.
I have one other quick question if I can pop it in here related to ridership numbers. Sophia or Nick, I'm just interested to see if there have been any projections made as far as ridership potential compared to the first line to this proposed line, and also related to what you've learned from some of the other lines and what you've seen as far as the ridership that has been a reality. Does that change or impact what you think the ridership might be here on the blue line if it is to come?
Sure, I'll take a stab at that a little bit. As one, we haven't fully run the ridership. We'll need to do so when we kind of place all of our stations and figure out run times and all of that kind of stuff. I think we do have a potential for a very good number in terms of ridership, just because we're serving some of the same communities that we had on the previous alignment. Plus, we're potentially attempting to reach denser commercial and residential areas in the city of Minneapolis. I think overall, we've seen ridership changes during the pandemic, and some of that over time will recover. One of the things that we have been noticing, particularly is your less peak commute time, right? Is that folks are traveling at all different parts of the day. And one of the things about light rail is that kind of service is already built in. We already have a system that is fast, frequent, every 10 minutes, that kind of maybe supports future travel behavior. And so we'll be getting much more into that and doing a lot of analysis. But I think right now we're hopeful for our ridership, especially as we think of when this project would be delivered. And we'll make sure to update everybody on that as we get better information. Okay, well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you both very much.